So, are you kind of tired of looking for wisdom in productivity apps and the latest self help books? Well, today we're going to explore a totally different perspective, one that's rooted in the earth itself. We're going to dive into some of the powerful ideas found in native philosophy. Does this sound at all familiar? I mean, it's pretty spot on description of modern life, isn't it? That constant buzz of anxiety, the feeling that you're always on, always connected, but somehow you're more disconnected than you've ever been. We're always looking for peace in the next productivity app or some new life hack, but what if we're just looking in all the wrong places? We're trying to solve a deep spiritual problem with a tech solution, and let's be honest, it's just not working. So what's the alternative then? Let's take a look at a worldview that has survived for thousands of years, a perspective that's really less of a philosophy and more of a survival manual for the soul. And that right there is the key. This isn't something to just be studied behind glass in a museum. No, it's a living, breathing set of ideas for how to navigate the world, how to find your place in it, and maybe how to manage the anxieties that just come with being human. Okay, so what's the big idea here? It all starts with this really fundamental shift in how you see everything. It's a true aha moment about the world and, where we fit in. On the left, you've got the model we're all pretty familiar with, right? The Western hierarchy with humans sitting right at the top. But then look at the right. That's the relational view, where everything, and I mean everything, exists in a circle, like a family. And this isn't just a tiny tweak. It fundamentally changes your entire relationship with the world. There's this Lakota phrase, Mitaka Oyai Sing, that just captures this perfectly. It translates to all my relations, but it is so much more than a nice saying. It's been called a psychological radicalization. And it's radical because it forces you to stop seeing the world as just a pile of resources for you to use, and instead, to see it as a family of relatives you have to respect. Think about it. When you believe the world around you is alive and full of relatives, you can't just take and take and take. You have to enter into a relationship of give and take, of reciprocity. The world stops being a store and it starts being your home. And the psychological payoff for this shift? It's huge. In an age where so many of us feel so deeply disconnected, this perspective offers a really powerful antidote. You are never, ever truly alone because you are a fundamental part of a whole ecosystem. You go from being just a consumer to being a relative. Now, this way of seeing the world isn't just some abstract idea. It's actually woven into the very fabric of foundational stories. And these aren't just myths. You can think of them as blueprints for how to live. For example, take the Haudenosaunee creation story. When Sky Woman falls from the sky, there's no single, all-powerful creator who swoops in. Instead, the animals team up. The birds organize to catch her, but she needs land, and it's the humble toad who bravely dives deep into the water and comes back with just a little handful of mud. That mud gets placed on a turtle's back, and from there it magically grows into the world we know. The lesson in that story is so powerful. Creation was a group project. It wasn't a top-down command. And for us, today, the message is crystal clear. You don't have to carry the weight of the world all by yourself. We are all in this thing together. And this idea just reinforces that everyone has a role to play. It doesn't matter how small or insignificant you might feel when you're facing these huge global problems. Your contribution, your little handful of mud, is absolutely essential. Creation isn't over. It is happening right now, and it needs you. Okay, so we're going to take a bit of a wild detour now because this relational worldview has actually echoed in some really surprising places. And it led to this fascinating and pretty complex intersection with American frontier theology. So back in the 19th century, the founder of Mormonism, Joseph Smith, he introduced an idea that was, for the time, truly radical. The Book of Mormon claimed that Native Americans weren't savages, but that they were in fact the Lamanites, descendants of a lost tribe of Israel. And when you look at them side by side, the thematic overlaps are pretty striking. Both traditions see the American continent as sacred land. One is the earth itself, the other is a specific promised land. Both put this huge emphasis on ancestors, one through veneration, the other through intense genealogy. And both are incredibly communal, centered around either the tribe or the local congregation. But, and this is a really important but, it is crucial to acknowledge the historical reality here. This noble origin story in Mormon theology, well, it didn't prevent a history of tension, of displacement, and forced assimilation. It's just a stark reminder that even philosophies with good intentions can have very complex and painful real-world consequences. Okay, so let's bring all this back home. How can we take these profound ideas and actually apply them to find a little bit of sanity in our own chaotic lives? This is the key question, right? How do we respectfully draw wisdom from these traditions without being appropriative, without being that guy? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. You focus on the perspective, not the performance. This is about changing how you see things, not about changing your wardrobe. So here are 3 simple practices you can start with. First, something called radical reciprocity. It's not about big gestures. Just before you eat an apple, take 1 second to acknowledge the apple and the tree it came from. Second, remember the toad. When problems feel way too big, just focus on your small, brave contribution, your handful of mud. And finally, silence the noise. Put the phone down, step outside, and just listen to your relatives, the birds, the wind. Ultimately, all of this leads to a really profound shift in how you see yourself. We so often feel like these isolated individuals, like ghosts in a machine. This philosophy gives us a much more grounding image. You aren't a ghost in a machine. You are a strand in a web. And this idea has 2 sides to it. On the one hand, it's a huge responsibility, knowing that your actions ripple out through the entire web. But it is also so incredibly grounding. You matter, not in some isolated, self-important way, but because the rock matters, and the wind matters, and the birds matter too. You are an essential part of something immense. And so we'll just leave you with this one last question to think about. What if our frantic search for peace is actually the problem? What if peace isn't some destination we have to reach, but it's the very ground beneath our feet, just waiting for us to finally notice?